Welcome to Monitor. Today we are with Kerstin Sayer and Nana Jules Larsen. They are both students of anthropology in the Aarhus University. They are in the second year and they have been working with all their college in an exhibition in Juanses. Exhibition that you can see in the Moswell Museum until 28th of August?
21st.
Oh, sorry, 21st of August. Yeah. So, Kerstin has been working in the curator group and Nana has been working in a specific room, Humor at the Hospital. So, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for letting us come.
So, can you describe what is Guansen, the exhibition that you have been working on it?
What is about, or?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's about the topic Grænser, or boundaries, and we've been working with all sort of different things. Nana has been working with humor at the hospital, and other groups have been working with gender and different categories of being human or being more of technology. And so it's about boundaries in everyday life and how people move around them and cope with them in their lives. And
you have been approximately 69 students. You have been 69 students, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. How have you coordinated yourself? How have you organized to do that?
Well, we have been divided into 12 groups with each a specific boundary or limit, so to speak, to work with. And then we have had the curator group who has who sees it from above, who picks up all the pieces and put them all together. So it all makes sense in a greater, yeah.
We've been behind the scenes doing publicity as well. And so the groups, they have been focusing on their own kind of subject within the boundary topic, and then we have been helping each group visualize their analysis and what they wanted to say in the exhibitions.
Yeah. And now I'm going to ask you about anthropology specifically.
Yeah.
What is a boundary in anthropologic definition?
Oh, well, it's a huge question, and there are different kinds also, as you can see in the exhibition. There are all different kinds of boundaries, all from, like a national border, a physical boundary, territorial boundaries, and there are social boundaries in which we all meet in our everyday lives. So you cannot say there is a specific boundary, there are all kinds of boundaries. But of course it's something that people, they work within specific boundaries, and however, it's different. It's about crossing boundaries. Our exhibition is about where is the line, where is the limit, and when do you cross it, and that all depends on different situations. So that's what we wanted to say, that, put boundaries in a new light. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could say in anthropology that some people might say that the limit is right here, I can't go any further, this is what I'm allowed to say in this situation, for example. And then for Nana it might be different. Mm-hmm. So we're not to say that everything is relative, but it depends on who you're speaking with and what social situation you're in.
Yeah, it depends on the eyes that see, and that's what we as anthropologists want to
examine.
Yeah, examine, because we're all different, and that's the beauty of anthropology, because we don't want to look at it from one side. We want to look at every person's perspective and how these are different, and that's what we want with this exhibition. Yeah.
To see like the different boundaries in
exactly. Yeah.
So in a specific exhibition, in your exhibition was about humor at the hospital. How the boundaries were working there? How boundaries you examined in that exhibition?
Well, we started with we actually found out that there are different kinds of boundaries within that specific topic, but we started with the line at the floor, the physical boundary, the territorial boundary. When you cross that line, you're in the hospital. It's kind of a different world, so to speak. And when you cross that line, humor gets another. Well, you can say that humor You use humor in another way when you cross that line. And for the hospital staff, for the hospital people, among the colleagues at the hospital, you use humor as a survival mechanism. And that's what we found out during our field work and through our informants, that humor depends on where you are, if you're outside the line, inside the line from the hospital or from the outside. So that the way you use humor depends on where you are, inside or outside the hospital.
It was like a different way of humor, a different kind of humor.
Yeah, we found out that they actually use a very dark humor inside the hospital, but it's very important that to understand that they only do this when they're not working directly with the patients. They're doing it as a survival mechanism to actually cope with all these very bizarre things that they sometimes experience. So yeah, that's what we found out.
Do you think doing that exhibition that the boundaries are a positive thing? I mean, how the boundaries are working?
Within the hospital or?
In general.
In general, yeah.
Well, I think as human beings we need to have them in some sort. We need to sometimes have them to cross them. I mean, to break the rules sometimes. But I think it's some sort of a human condition that you have to know that there's some sort of right or wrong, and there's a border between what you can and cannot do. And then sometimes, I mean, at the hospital, when you have a stressful environment that you work in, sometimes you need to cross that border to say some sort of morbid humor or a joke to your colleague, but to function as a human being when you come home and to leave it behind you, so that you don't feel the stress when when you go home after a work day.
And and also borders and boundaries, whatever you call them, limits, they're constantly being challenged and redefined. And that's what also interesting about our exhibition, that we take this question up. Well, you have this, sometimes some people think it's a clear boundary and other things it's more like a borderland. But the important thing is that they're always constantly being challenged, and also through time, what might not have been a border before or a boundary before is maybe now being challenged. An example from the exhibition could be love. How can love live even though you may be miles apart? That might not have been a problem for 100 years ago, but now it's something that we have to figure out. Where does the line go? Where are the limits for love in a global world? So yeah.
Yeah. So it's like in different groups, there are always different boundaries, and sometimes it's not bad to break them, and they are all the time changing. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what happens if we break a boundary that is very important for us as a society?
I think we evolve if we question what boundaries we work around in our everyday life. So I think it's important that we try to stop for a moment and think about what is it that we experience in our everyday life, and what is it that we maybe have to change or work around in a different way. So I think it's very important to have boundaries and to know that it's not always defined what we can or cannot do.
That's why, for example, when we change culture or group of people, sometimes there is like, what is happening here? Because sometimes there are two people from different parts that they are not really understand each other because they are not respecting the boundaries because they don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And going back to the exhibition, how do you think that exhibition has impact to the public that they have seen it?
Well, I hope that they take the boundaries that they experience of their everyday life and think about it in another way and see, well, I might think that the limit goes there, but my neighbor might think something else, so that you see it from another perspective than you usually do, put it in another light, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been walking around the exhibition with my grandparents and my parents and my friends and so on. And every time I walk in there with another group of people or my relatives, there's something different that they notice. So I think we succeeded in making an exhibition that everyone can enjoy and everyone can find something that they get curious about and start to wonder, well, why am I thinking like this when it comes to, let's say, children and gender? So in that exhibition I was with my grandparents, and they were more or less conservative about the idea of, let's say, a boy wearing a dress. And then we started to talk about, well, why is it that this boy couldn't wear a dress? And I could see that they started to wonder, well, how did I get this idea? But yeah, so I think we made an exhibition that gets you to wonder about your what you think of.
But I would also really say that is what makes it anthropological. That's what anthropology can do. It makes you think in different ways, and what you might take for granted in your daily life, well, we find ways to make you see it in a new perspective. So, yeah.
And what has been the most challenging about to make that exhibition?
Well, I would probably say usually when you go out and make qualitative fieldwork, as we do as anthropologists, you do it, well, I would say for at least a couple of months, maybe up to years, to do research. Now we had a month to do the research, to collect the data, to actually make the exhibition. So the time has been a real challenge to us, yeah. We only had a month, so it was long nights and early mornings.
Yeah, and also to make it fit in a museum. You know, when the groups were out doing fieldwork and we had all these meetings about what they had visualized, and then to actually make it, and to make it fit in a room, and to make it so that the public could understand this is what is going on at the hospital. Or
it has to meet with the aesthetic of the Moswar Museum.
Sure, and it had to meet the public, to make it understandable, because it's very complex working with boundaries, and every exhibition has chosen a very complex subject within the boundary. So it was also very challenging to make it so that people could actually understand this when they came into the museum.
Also, during our education, we are schooled to work with other anthropology students, and we have a lot of definitions that we use just among us. But it has been in kind of sometimes a struggle actually to leave that behind and just say it so another audience will understand. Yeah. People who don't normally actually know what anthropology is. So how can we tell them about anthropology in ways that they also will understand?
And I have a question. Why that exhibition was in the Moswar Museum? Why not in another museum?
We are very connected to the Mungsgaard Museum. We study just beside the museum. There's the old museum. That's where we have our what do you call it?
Our classrooms.
Yeah. And so we have a good connection to Mungsgaard. And there's, when you walk into the museum, there's the archaeologists who have an exhibition in the basement, and then there's the ethnographers or anthropologists who have their exhibition at the first floor. So it's also a very, it has a long history of being a place of ethnography and anthropology. So that's
sense.
also why.
Yeah. And in the specific rooms when you were working on it, because you have explained me how you organize yourself, like in in a big group, but in the specific, how you organize yourselves to make?
Well, we had different ways well, I was in a workshop which worked with text. So how you tell information through text, and then other people worked with film, video, and with sound, and some people worked with the exhibition, with
making the rooms.
Making the rooms. Yeah. So actually, we were divided in the group. We were divided, so each person had a different area of expertise. Yeah.
Oh, and what was yours?
I was on text, so I was writing all the things that were on the walls, and we had a trash can where you could look at some of the jokes that is not allowed, where you actually cross the boundary inside the hospital. So we made different things with the text around the room to make it interesting and appealing to the audience.
Yeah. And going back to the anthropology part about the boundaries, can we hurt someone with our boundaries? Like make them feel bad?
Well, I would say you can, but it's important to find a way to accept that people have different boundaries. But of course, if you meet a person, there are some people who has a hard time understanding that, for example, in the exhibition I was a part of, humor at the hospital, it's a very sensitive topic, because usually when you're outside the hospital, it's not okay to make these jokes. But what we as anthropologists want to make clear is that inside the hospital, it is kind of okay, because it's a survival mechanism. These doctors and nurses, they actually stand between, they cross the limit every day between life and death. And how do you cope with such a job? How do you go from patient to patient who are deadly sick? How do you do that? And that might be difficult for a lot of people to understand, but that's what we wanted to tell, that there's a reason for this, so that people understand why they might cross that boundary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were also, did you study there the limits between patients and doctors, or between...
Well, we mostly did between colleagues at the hospital, nurses and doctors and such. We didn't focus on the patients, but of course our informants told us that it's not something that they do in front of the patients, because that would cross their boundary and might hurt them. Yeah.
And what has been the most enjoyable thing when you were doing the exhibition?
And the teamwork, first of all, getting to work so close with all of our
the students all together. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then to see it become alive. Well, every group has been out doing field work and making their analysis, and we in the curator group, we have been having meetings with the groups, and all these ideas floating around the rooms, and then finally getting to see it in a real museum. This is something that we made, and we're very proud of it. Yeah.
A lot of hard work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for you, that exhibition, what has mean for you? I mean, what have you learned, not only in your education, if not as a person as well?
Well, again, with the teamwork, we've learned to work in bigger groups, and to have this huge assignment that we have to work together to accomplish. And I've learned a lot about organizing everything. And, well, yes.
Well, I would say that I have learned that even though my boundaries have been crossed from the other exhibitions, that really made me think. So I think it's important to remember that every person needs that. We need to challenge those boundaries, and that has made a great impact on me. Because I thought actually that I see myself as a very open-minded person in general in my daily life. But actually my boundaries were challenged as well from the other exhibitions. That made me wonder, and I think that's a really good thing for us as people in the world we live in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Because in your 12 rooms, I guess in the most visual about breaking boundaries, I guess it would be maybe the taboo room.
Yeah.
Because it was like talking about, but that about themes like sex or
Bringing up a child and not feeling, having a sensitivity about yourself, not feeling that you're good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like they were like showing that boundary is not broke, but it's like this is changing. Like you were explaining before, that maybe that kind of subjects, they are changing with time. Because before it was like nobody talks about sex, and now it's like maybe.
Yeah, it's something that we all talk about. Yeah, I think well, there are a lot of the exhibition that I don't think they might have been discussable many years ago, but now it comes up also because we are constantly facing other cultures, and we're constantly facing people that are brought up in another way than we have. And I think it's a good idea to see things in a new perspective, and this exhibition can maybe do that somehow. Yeah, we hope so, at least.
To get people to talk about things that they normally don't, and to reflect on where their own boundaries go.
Yeah, and reflect on society in general. I think that's a healthy thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, so, well, we are arriving to the end of the program, so would you like to say something else about the exhibition?
Well, I would just say that everybody should come and see it. Of course, I think it's a really good experience for all ages, and wherever you come from in the world, I think it would be good for you to just come and take a look.
There's something for everybody in there.
So thank you very much for coming, Kirsten and Nana.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed the program, and if you want to see the exhibition, Grenze, you can go to the Mosgang Museum until 21st of August. Thank you very much, and see you next time.